our desire to help you, and we will accomplish it for sure together today, help you to feel the freshness and newness of who you are, and help you to find ways to focus, to allow those fresh ideas to evolve. It's like putting a kernel of corn in the ground and having the knowledge, because you have farmers in your history, that you know that it's going to mature and that it's going to do its natural thing, and that in a little while, if tended to, you're going to see some green stuff come up out of the ground that is going to get bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger and surer, and it's going to produce those ears of corn that in time you will be able to pluck and eat. And because you understand the process, you are willing to allow the natural process. You don't expect that thing to turn to a full bin of ears of corn instantaneously. You are willing to allow the gestation process, and you are willing to allow those vibrations to turn into meaningful manifestations. And less patient humans might go out the next day. Abraham, you said, I'm the creator of my own reality, and I want corn, and where is it? Stomp it around on the ground, and then just dig it up and eat it. Not what I had in mind, you say. And so we want to ask you something that's a little paradoxical. We want to ask you to be patient at the same time that we say to you, in alignment, you don't need patience. Because when you're in alignment, you understand the process. And more important, you enjoy the evolving process. Because every stage of its evolution along the way is satisfying to you. It's the old adage that so many of you are annoyed with. The joy is in the journey. The joy is in the journey. And you say, I'll put up with this happy journey as long as I get what I want. And we say, when getting what you want that you don't have right now is what is of paramount importance to you, then you're not joyful in your journey. Then you're not in an allowing state. Then you're not allowing it to evolve. And then you're not seeing the evolution of it. You're not getting to witness it unfolding. So as we talk about thoughts turning to things, we're talking about vibrations being received by you in thought form. We're talking about you receiving a thought that was a vibration. But we're talking about you positioning yourself vibrationally, which means by being happy, through meditation or appreciation or however you've found your way to be there. You translating that vibration into a thought and being consciously aware that that thought came to you because you were in the receiving mode. The receiving mode is the most important thing that we want to convey to you and that we want you to take away from this gathering. Step one is you ask. You do that all day, every day. You can't stop it. Step two is source answers. That just happens. That's not your work. But step three is the receiving mode. Step three is you get into the allowing mode, which means step three is you find a way to think about what you want in a way that doesn't feel bad. That's a screwy way of saying it. Better way of saying it is you find a way to think about this missing thing in a way that feels good. Now we're just toying with you. You find a way of accepting the absence of your lover and all the money that you want, and you still feel good. And you say, oh, now we get your shtick, Abraham. You're like all the other religions. Your reward is in heaven. Wait for it then. But we are not asking you to wait until you have reemerged into non-physical. We're saying to you that as you find vibrational alignment, which means you find thoughts that feel good about the things you want, even though they haven't manifested, we're saying to you, if you can reach the place where you don't need the manifestation in order to feel good, then it will come, and it will come quickly. But if you need the manifestation, which you don't have, and in your need for the manifestation, you also have awareness that it isn't, then in your awareness that it isn't, you offer so much vibration about the isn't-ness of it that you don't allow the is-ness of it, and then even though it is progressing, you miss all the clues because you're on a different radio frequency. Just like you can't set your radio dial on 101 AM and hear what's being broadcast on 97 FM. The frequencies must match up. So the frequency of what you want is a joyful feeling frequency. And that word feeling is really the key, because you sort of kind of think that you know how to sort out the stuff that's already been manifested. You can put it in piles of beautiful or not beautiful or good or bad. You do that all the time as humans. You're sorting out the piles of manifestation and squabbling over them, even though it's old news. It's like gum that all the flavor's been chewed out of. It's the old stuff, you see. Where what you're wanting to do is focus in a way that you keep yourself sharp and therefore in the discovery stage of the new things that are happening. Because thoughts turning to things sounds really nebulous. We talked to you about this vibrational world, and we want you to tune into the vibrational world, and it can kind of sound hard to you if you are not accustomed to tuning to vibrations in a way that are meaningful to you. So here's really what we mean. For example, Esther meditates. She found a way to meditate. She found a way to quiet her mind. And when she does, she feels good. We've enjoyed this interaction immensely. She feels good. She's free of resistance. In order to meditate, her mind must be quiet. And her mind does not want to be quiet. Her mind wants to think about this and that and this and that, what somebody said yesterday and what they really meant by it, and what happened over there and what's going on at the office, and why that person cut her off in traffic. Her mind wants to think about some of the things that are going on. Her mind wants to think, because there are momentum in many thoughts, about things that would hold her in resistance to being in the receiving mode. So every day for 15 or 20 minutes, we've convinced her to sit and quiet her mind. And when she quiets her mind, what happens is she allows the vibrational frequency of her physical body to rise to the level of that of us. Now, that's the most important thing that you will ever hear us say. If you are going to be in the receiving mode, and you want to be in the receiving mode, because that's where all the good insights are. If you are going to be in the receiving mode, when you are in the receiving mode, to be in the receiving mode, what being in the receiving mode means is you are at the same frequency of your inner being, which means you can't hate someone and be in the same frequency with your inner being, because your inner being is not going to join you in that hatred. You can't be down on yourself or down on someone else, because your inner being isn't. So the receiving mode means vibrational equivalency to your inner being. That's what the receiving mode means. Well, you don't just go there easily sometimes, because you've practiced thoughts since you're pioneers out here on the leading edge. You've practiced thoughts that take you away from that receiving mode. You've practiced a lot of thoughts that are really step one thoughts. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. We just want you to know the difference between a step one thought and a step three thought. The step one thought is full of resistance, and the step three thought has no resistance within it. So the receiving mode is the equivalency to your inner being, and meditation or appreciation will get you there quickly. So Esther sat to meditate again, and she quieted her mind, which meant she had no thought, and she was experiencing feelings of bliss and some movement. In other words, we were projecting our intention for motion in her body, and she was in what would appear to be at an unconscious state, just translating the movement and enjoying the sensation of the movement. Just soft, gentle movement, mostly in her neck and head, some in her back, muscles in her arms. In other words, we were moving her physical apparatus, and she was enjoying the process of it. And after about 15 minutes of that kind of quieted mind, it was nearly time for her timer to go off. She sets it for 20 and usually comes out of meditation somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. And so as she was just about to come out of meditation, a thought occurred to her. A very powerful and wonderful feeling thought. Not the kind of thought that you would expect from a spiritual leader. She thought, I would really like to move the furniture around in this room. Now, this is what we want you to understand. These thoughts of connection with your source are going to lead you to inspired experience about things that matter to you. And so that thought felt so good to her that when she came out of meditation, she could hardly wait to begin the process of it. So she had a few things that she intended to do that day, but the first thing she did was get on the internet and find some people who could come and help her move furniture. And it was really, really fun. There were a lot of them. And she zeroed in on 2 men in a truck, and she called them and she said, I would like 2 men to come. I don't need their truck unless they need their truck to get here, but I just need 2 men to come because I'm not going to move anything away from my house. I just want to move some things around in the house. Now, here's what we want you to understand about this. Before that day of that meditation where she got that thought, the day before that, when she came out of meditation, she had an idea. Oh, I think I will try to understand the music system in this house. Now, this is a house that she and Jerry have purchased a long, long time ago. And Jerry understood the musical system in this house. He was always the one that set the music into the gardens and so forth. Esther didn't really know what was going on with it. It was just something that he always did, and she did not know what buttons made what happen. It's not exactly an intuitive system. It's a very convoluted system. But she came out of meditation thinking, I'll bet I can make this music go. And the thought was so powerful. This was the day before the 2 men in a truck day. This was the great idea from God that came out of meditation that day. So she sat, fiddled with buttons, discovered that she could make music play in the courtyards and in the gardens and in every room in the house. She discovered how she could make it loud. She discovered how she could find any music genre imaginable. And so she sat there for quite a bit of time that day and played a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And she discovered a station that thrilled her. She had not listened to it before. It was rap. So interesting what they had to say. And so interesting the way they said it. And so interesting the way the rhythm called for it. It was intoxicating to her. She was mesmerized by it and found herself wanting to write some rap. So now it's the next day. And now her interest is in moving furniture. And she's called 2 men in a truck. And so that afternoon, 2 men showed up. And they were delightful. And they moved this over there and this over there and that 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 over there, that over there. And then they moved that back and that back and that back and that back. It was really fun to see how things looked in different places. And much of it returned to where it had been, but it was really a lot of fun moving these things around as human beings like to do. And so then, in the process of all this fun, these young boys are wanting to know what Esther does. She has nice things, and she has a lot of them. But mostly what they noticed is how playful she was, and how silly she is, and how interesting it was to watch someone just move things around for the fun of it. Just for the fun of it. And so one of them said to her, it's a beautiful day. And Esther said, it really is. And he said, but I'm leaving. And Esther said, where are you going? And he said, I'm going back to Alabama. And Esther said, why? And he said, because I'm a rapper. And because I have some things that are happening back there that I can't seem to get to happen out here. So I'm going to go to where my rap is happening. And Esther said, hold on a minute. So she goes into the other room, pushes some buttons, and all of a sudden, rap. Famous rap. All through the gardens, all through the rooms, all through the everywhere, loud. The neighbors can hear it. Everyone can hear it. And his eyes are very, very big. And he says, what do you do? And Esther said, I'm a teacher. And he said, what do you teach? And Esther said, rap. And then she said, no. She says, really, it's relatively new to me. Like yesterday. But now they have this experience going, and now he's expressing his desires, his hopes, his wishes. And Esther's got a cabinet full of books that explain all of that. And so now they have this relationship. Now she's signing books for him. Now she's handing CDs to him. Now he's on top of the world. In fact, she got a text from him yesterday about how thrilled he is with what he is already knowing that he knew, and now he knows why he knows what he knows. One of the most exhilarating experiences. Now, what we're saying to you is That's how thoughts turn to things. You get into the receiving mode, which leads you to a thought that you wouldn't think has any relationship to anything that is important to you. But there's nothing more important to Esther than to be in a situation with someone who has something that they want to understand that the sources within her do understand. In other words, nothing is more meaningful, nothing is more satisfying to Esther than a moment like that. And she has come to accept that sometimes you have to play with the music system, and sometimes you have to listen to something that's not what you would usually listen to in order to discover the exhilaration of something that you didn't know you were even looking for, which leads you the next day to want to move furniture around. Why? Because the person who has the most to gain from you on the subject that is most important to you is lurking in the area, and the path of least resistance for you and him to be together is for you to want to move your furniture around. Now, humans want to say, Abraham, why didn't you just tell Esther he was looking for her and give her his number? And we say, we would, but Esther wasn't in the receiving mode of the telephone number. And beside that, Esther wants to have the fun along the way, don't you? Don't you want to have the fun along the way? Don't you want it to be natural unfolding? Nothing is more annoying than for one of you to get into the hot seat and express some deep desire, and then someone who feels that they have the answer to your desire to now seek you out because they heard what you said here. That's not law of attraction. That's listening and going and then shoving it down your throat. We want law of attraction to work for you in the way law of attraction works for you. And frankly, that's the only way that you will really accept it. That is the path of least resistance for you. You want these natural unfoldings of things. And most important, you've got to be ready to be ready. So hear it. Esther was ready to play the music. Oh, and that has satisfied her in so many ways. The music that she's been playing through her gardens and through her rooms, that was not just only for that. It has broadened into so much more satisfaction in so many ways. But it was a big piece of something that really mattered. And then moving the furniture around, the furniture was fine where it was. It's a little better now, but that's not the whole point. The whole point of it was it led to a lifetime friendship with someone who is an avid seeker of something that Esther holds a lot of the keys to. Well, this is how it is for you. You see, your inner being knows where you stand in relationship to everything that you want. And your inner being knows what your path of least resistance to it is. You keep saying, inner being, don't show me my path of least resistance. Show me the speediest path to the manifestation of what I want, because I want to see it and hear it and smell it and taste it, touch it. And frankly, I want it now. I want it right now. And we say, you think you do, and you say, no, I know I do. I want it now. I want it now. And we say, you think you do, and you say, no, I'm sure of it. I'm sure I want it now. And we say, you can't have it now, all right? You got to be ready to be ready to be ready to be ready. And if you will accept that you're ready for what you're ready for, and if you've decided to find satisfaction for what you are ready for, then the satisfaction will just keep coming to you, and you will be living this joyful journey, and you will constantly be on the brink of the final unfolding into the manifestation.
So, we all know that some foods make us gain weight, and some foods are definitely healthier than others. But what I didn't know...
I feel amazing today. It's great to be up with you. I've been curious about a couple things. Can you talk to us about angels and spirit guides?
Well, there are a lot of different names and labels that you give in your attempt to explain your interpretation of non-physical. What specifically are you wanting from us?
How do angels or spirit guides work? Are they real? How do we experience them? How do we call on them?
Well, it's a big question because a lot of different people use those labels and mean somewhat different things by them. But in essence, what you're asking about, you are extensions of source energy. And so, of course, all of that is real. In other words, as Esther is allowing us to visit with you as she translates, we're offering radio signals or blocks of thought that are like radio signals, and she's translating them. And there are people who, when they receive those blocks of thoughts or radio signals, can translate visually. Esther is translating verbally. And so the non-physical is interacting with you in many different ways. And depending upon the intensity of your desire to know and your ability to allow in any given moment is what makes for the variety of experiences that different people are having. Esther said to us one night early on in her new relationship with us consciously, "Abraham, I want to see you." And we said, "We don't think you really do," because we had seen her lying in her bed with her eyes closed, afraid that she might see us. She was beginning to develop a very nice relationship with us, and she didn't want anything weird to happen that would upset her in any way. And so she said, "No, really, Abraham, I do want to see you." And we said, "Then open your eyes." It was a very dark bedroom out under a Texas sky. Jerry was sound asleep, and Esther opened her eyes, and she saw a room full of fireflies, what looked like millions of fireflies, too many to count. And then all of the fireflies gathered together in one corner, emitting a light that was so bright that Esther could not look into it. And then the bright light dispersed into several lights around the room, not millions and not one bright light, but several lights around the room that Esther could behold. And then she said, "I see that you are energy." And we said, "This is your visual translation of that which we are." And it is the most accurate translation that Esther and her practical mindedness could find, because it was the translation in the way that we were projecting it. In other words, we want Esther to understand that we are energy. There are those who want their spirit guide or their non-physical energy stream to be translated to them in ways that match the stories that they've been told. One day, early in also in Jerry and Esther's experience, they did a radio broadcast in Dallas, Texas. And one of the women who heard the broadcast came to the first meeting and later became a very good friend with Jerry and Esther. And she later told them that at that first meeting, or on that way to that meeting, she had said, "All right, Abraham, whoever you are you good or evil?" Which sort of gives you an idea of where she was at that time. She did not yet know what we had to say, and she was not sure how it all broke down into physical terminology. And so, as the meeting unfolded, Esther remembers Abraham sitting in a chair and opening her eyes, and then pausing in silence for what felt to Esther like a very long time. And then the meeting got underway, and the questions and answers began. And a few weeks later, once Jerry and Esther became very good friends with this dear woman, she told them about her story, about how she had quizzed us on her way to the meeting, and that when Esther, Abraham, opened their eyes, that the room filled with wings of angels. And so we were offering a block of thought to this woman who was asking this intense question, a woman who was able to interpret visually on many occasions, and her interpretation gave her the answer that she was looking for, you see. And so we want to say to you, in a soft way, that it is in the eye of the beholder, in the sense that everyone has the ability to interact with non-physical, but you cannot interact apart from the beliefs you already hold. So sometimes in the beginning, what you will receive in terms of what you see or even what you hear will match the belief system that you hold. And in time, as you get more in sync with who you are, and you're able to relax and release some of the folklore that you've picked up along your physical trail, then you can begin to have more of your own authentic experience. But we want to say to you, one who sees light in a room or fireflies in a room is not more accurate than one who sees a room filled with angels' wings or angels. In other words, you get to interpret this in whatever way that you want to. It is offered to you purely, but you are the interpreter of it, and so you make it what it is. And so, over time, it is extraordinary the amount of stories that physical man tells about his interaction with non-physical. We would call all of it real. We would call all of it valid. And then we would say, if we were standing in your physical shoes, in what way do I want to interact? Esther was not coming from a religious basis, and she did not want any distortion whatsoever. She was the purest slate that we had seen, in that she had not come to any conclusions of her own that would prohibit her from being able to receive clearly what we were offering. And so, as Esther finds words, they are always words that match the intention that we are offering. And then over time, as we offer words, and Esther depicts our meaning with words, and we are able to feel your response to her words, and then we are able to feel your vibration in response to her words. Over time, we have literally created a language that depicts purely the intent of Abraham. But that does not mean that it is the only language that is authentic. There are many ways of interpreting non-physical.
I read a book a couple months ago, and I loved the book. It was by a woman named Lynn Grabhorn. Excuse Me, Your Life is Waiting, and it was based on your teachings, and it was just said in a very powerful way. So then I picked up the next book, which was very disturbing to me. She talked about the others, and I was wondering if that is just her disturbed perception, or if such malevolent beings exist.
Well, we'll begin by saying to you that there is only a stream of well-being, and that that which is non-physical is of that stream. But we also say to you that every thought that has ever been thought still exists. And so, as the spin-off of man's conscious mind continues, experience after experience, century after century, there's a lot of thought data that is there. In your lifetime, the movie industry has added dramatically to the way man spins his thoughts around the subject. The religions, the information that is coming from the pulpit, so much more information about the devil and evil than about good and God. And so if you talk to little children who go to church, often they will tell you more about the devil than they will about God. It gets their attention more. It is something more to worry about, you see. And so what we notice is that in your environment, where contrast helps you to identify what is wanted, sometimes humans get a little bent on pushing against the part they don't want, and they don't get tuned quick enough to the new idea that is coming out of the contrast. And so there is a lot of thought, but all of it coming from man's conscious mind. People said to Esther in the beginning, Esther, aren't you afraid as you begin to receive Abraham? And by the time she began receiving those questions, there was no fear within her at all. She had come to sense who we were. She could feel who we were. She knew that there was no sense of possession, because any time the telephone would ring while Jerry was having a chat with us, we would release her immediately. Esther could feel that we were there in response to their request, that we were not asserting ourselves into their experience in any way, that they were asking and that we were answering. And so Esther was not in a place of fear at all. And then people would say, don't you need to protect yourself in some way? And as Esther heard more and more of them saying that, she began asking us about that. And we said, it's just like saying, if I set my radio dial on 6:30, do I need to worry about getting something from all of the other stations? And the answer is no. When you set your tuner, law of attraction is going to bring you that which is a vibrational match to the signal that you yourself are set at, you see. And so, Lynn Grabhorn was a woman, a wonderful woman, who came to many of Jerry and Esther's gatherings. She came to them one day, wanted to have lunch with them, and explained to them that she was going to write a book, and that she was going to base it on what Abraham had to say. And she also said, and I'm not going to tell anyone where I'm getting the material, because I think there are people out there that are very afraid of this kind of thing. And Esther and Jerry said, well, anyone is free to use our material. We are not keeping it secret. We want people to understand that they create their own reality. But it would be ever so nice if you would let people know where you got the information, so that if they want to go further with it, then they will be able to find the source of it. And now Esther can see, as she gets feedback from the second book, that this woman, this dear woman, was fearful of many things prior to coming to Jerry and Esther. And clearly there was that which was still active in her vibration. She was not the receiver of the material. She was the mimicker of the material. Everything that is written in her book, she transcribed from one of the recordings, you see. And so she was reaching for that feeling of well-being, but she had never really found it herself. And so there are many reasons that people are attracting what they are attracting. But it is our absolute promise to you that there is not some source of evil being out there that has the ability to insert itself in your experience. But you get what you think about, and it will come to you, will find a way to manifest, you see. The best way of describing this that we can, that will give you a sense of all of this, was one day we were visiting with a woman who lived in the San Francisco area. And she said, Abraham, I've been crossing these big bay bridges for many, many years, and I've never felt any fear about it at all. And recently, as I'm crossing these bridges, I am having what I must describe as panic attacks. She said, I want to lie on the floor of my car. My fear is so intense. What's happening with me? And we said, you must be bumping into some thought forms on the bridge. Well, she didn't like the sense of that at all. In other words, there are thought forms on the bridge. She said, whatever do you mean? And we said, well, you have to understand that everything that everyone thinks about is broadcast for everyone else to pick up if they are in the vibrational vicinity. And so people have been crossing these bridges. Often they're tourists, and it's a sort of precarious feeling. Often they're in a monster bus like Jerry and Esther's, and it's an even more precarious feeling because of the width of the lanes and going through the toll booths. There had recently been earthquakes, and some of the bridges had fallen down, which had increased people's concern about being on a bridge, maybe at a time of another earthquake. And we said, so all of these people are offering all of these thoughts, and these thoughts are being broadcast around the vicinity of this, and law of attraction is causing a coalescing of these. So there is thought, and then there is thought that is thought upon longer, and these thoughts have come into thought form. But we said they have been there when you have crossed the bridge, all of the days that you've crossed the bridge. We said the question is not where are the thought forms coming from, or why are the thought forms there. We said the question to ask is, why are you now picking up on these thought forms when you never have before? What's been going on in your experience that is making you a vibrational receiver of this? She knew right away. She said, my neighbor was burglarized, and it made me feel very vulnerable. I've been going to meetings. We're organizing a neighborhood watch system. I called someone to come to put an alarm system in my house. I'm considering even putting bars in my house. And so something not even related to the bridge, but related to a feeling of insecurity, had been activated within her, which brought her into vibrational range of something that she had never been in vibrational range of before. So we want you to understand that there are not big bad things out there that are of a supernatural nature. You do a plenty good job of creating the things that you do not want in your reality just by focusing on sickness and cancer and burglaries and terrorism. In other words, don't bring them from outer space. We promise you they are not coming. But whatever it is that you are giving your attention to is that which you will have an experience about. And that was nothing more than a creation of this woman based upon the vibrational balance of her being.
Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't really think that her second book was an accurate...
Oh, it's accurate. It's an accurate depiction of where she was at the time that she received it.
But it's not anything that the rest of us need to work
Well, you see, this is the reason that we want you to realize that you create your own reality. In other words, there are all kinds of influences out there. As you watch television and they point out to you that 1 out of every 5 has it and you're probably the one, and then they just that long stream of symptoms, and then they encourage you to eat that stuff, and then